Welcome everyone. My name's Evelyn Regan. I'm a senior admissions counselor at Rochester, and I'm also a U of R alum. Welcome to the Languages and Cultures panel today. I have some wonderful faculty members with me here today who are experts in their field and are here to give you a bit more information about what it's like to study both classics and modern languages and cultures at the University of Rochester. So we'll start off with some introductions, but throughout the panel, feel free to use the Q&A box to write in any questions that you have pertaining to modern languages and cultures or classics, and I'll be moderating that and asking those questions when we're finished with those introductions. So if Donatella, if you could start off.
Okay. My name is Donatella Stocchi Perucchio. I teach Italian. I funded the Italian program in the Department of Modern Languages and Cultures many years ago. And finally, I can happily say that we have a major in Italian studies. This is in place, in Italian and Italian studies. I also funded a program abroad. It's the only faculty-led semester abroad, completely managed and run by the U of R, offered by the U of R. And it's in Italy. And it's an integral part of this program in Italian and of this major in Italian. We also have summer programs connected to what we do here, and they are all fully integrated. We like our students to study abroad with us, with our same standards and same philosophy of education. So that's why we created this program.
John, would you mind going next?
Yes, sure. Hi, I'm John Gibbs. I'm professor of Russian and currently chair of the Department of Modern Languages and Cultures. And so I have a nice knowledge of numbers and overviews for the department. I can just say a few things briefly now. We are the most popular humanities department by numbers, enrollment numbers, and are about 5th or 6th ranked overall in total number of students enrolled in our department at any given semester. So a lot of students coming through the department interested in studying languages and cultures. And to give you just a sense for how that might translate, we average 191 clusters. That's something you'll find out about if you're a UR student. It's the way that you fulfill divisional requirements at the university. So we get 191 humanities clusters a year, and we average 73 minors and 37 majors a year in our department. So a lot of students come through the department, very popular department. We offer majors in 7 fields: French, German, Italian, Japanese, Russian, Spanish, and comparative literature, along with minors in Chinese. And we also offer Korean, Portuguese, and Polish in the department as well. You can take those as clusters.
Thank you, John. And last but not least, Nick.
I'm Nick Grayson. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Religion and Classics. So we're actually sort of 2 departments joined at the hip, so to speak. So on the one hand, what I am is a classicist. So I teach Latin and ancient Greek, as well as classics courses, mythology. I don't teach ancient history, but we also have ancient history and other variety of classical civilization courses. Like Donatella, I also am involved in study abroad. I started a short-term study abroad program to Rome and then also to Athens, which we now in our department alternate. These are over spring break. So for students who are interested in studying abroad but don't have either the time in their schedules, a lot of STEM students I know are worried about the ability to take a semester off over spring break. They can travel to either Italy or to Greece, depending on what year it is. Obviously, last year we had to cancel our program to Rome, which was too bad. But we're hoping to reinstitute it next year. And then so that's the classic side. And then on the other side is the religious studies, which actually has 2 majors. One is a sort of standard religious studies major, and now there's a new one that has just been approved, religion and society, I think it's something like that, which is looks much more at the sort of social aspects of religion and issues of social justice and politics within the study of religion. And I think, like MLC, we have a good number of clusters that come through. A lot of students will fulfill their humanities clusters through classics or through religion. And then oftentimes they sort of continue on and say, well, I've taken 3 courses, why don't I, or what I will do is I'll say, you've taken 3, why not take a few more and make it a minor? And then at that point, I sort of say, well, why don't you take a few more and you can make it a major. So I think we're a very popular second major, particularly for students who come a little late to the game and don't realize, oh, this stuff is actually really interesting, and I get to think about life through this different lens.
Thank you all. So like I mentioned before, feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A box. The most important part of this session is that you get a better idea of what these 2 different departments have to offer, and that your questions are answered about particular subjects. But in the meantime, I'll start off with some questions that I think a lot of students want to know. So we'll start off with a question about classes. So overall, what are classes like? How would you say your classes have functioned within the current pandemic virtual learning situation?
I'll start that one out, actually, if you don't mind, Evelyn, and say that the interesting thing about studying in modern languages and cultures and classics in terms of languages is that our departments offer you 2 kinds of knowledge. We offer you a very practical skill in that we teach you proficiency in a language. Proficiency in a language is something you can put on a resume. It's a job skill. If your post-UR time is going to, your plans beyond graduation, your career plans involve travel, international business, or within the United States, work with people who are speaking a different language, then this is a skill that we can impart. But you also get in our department deep, active, robust intellectual engagement with the cultural products of these different national traditions that we teach. And this is the same in religion and classics. So our departments really satisfy both of your needs. You need sort of for practical knowledge, and your need for this sort of personally transformative intellectual engagement, the kind of stuff that changes your life. That's a really broad way of looking at life in our departments. I'll let my colleagues speak in more detail.
So John, I think you hit it on the head there. That although I will say that maybe with Latin and Greek, less in terms of practical knowledge, but certainly within a sort of a habit of mind. One of the things I think, practically speaking, not only do you gain fluency in a language, but I think studying other languages is that you, much like studying mathematics or physics or logic, that you develop a habit of mind and a sort of a focus and discipline that I'm not sure you get in some other situations. So certainly with Latin and Greek, although I also will say that in religion and classics, we also offer Arabic, so modern Arabic, and then also modern Hebrew. So those 2 can kind of fit into that category that you mentioned about practical skills. And then, yeah, I think that particularly with religion and then classics, which deals in sort of big ideas and important ideas in the history of humankind, that these are things that we tackle. What is justice? What is equality? I teach a course on democracy, and it's a comparative course between ancient democracy, that is the one practiced in ancient Athens, and modern democracy, which I think we are engaging with on a daily basis these days. And so those students who are in that class, or who are in the class that one of my colleagues teaches on justice and the justice system, are really engaging with not just the sort of abstract intellectual ideas, but ideas that we are tackling, that are seen in the news today, I think that are going to affect the way we view and the way we live in today's world.
Well, we have a lot of connections in terms of what we do and the approaches. As far as our mission in making students proficient in language, I always, when I talk to students about what we do, I always tell them what a language is. And language is a perspective on the world. So in addition to providing special training in the way our brains work, and helping us in functioning logically and in all those ways that Unique described, a language gives us a perspective on the world. So to speak another language doesn't mean that you say the same thing in a different way, but that you see the world in a different way. And the more you have in terms of these perspectives, the more you are equipped to deal with the reality that you are that you have in front of you. So I insist on the fact that there is this plurality of visions that the study of languages provides, and the fact that given this particular aspect, languages also give a cultural literacy. So it's not just that you talk to other people, but you present yourself, you present your identity and you interact with other identities with this cultural competence. One major thing that needs to be dispelled is the idea that the language is something static and isolated. So it is immersed in the world of culture, which is made of many things. Is made of history, is made of habits, is made of art, is made of specific ways in which people live. All these things are part of what we teach. And Nick, when you were talking about the fact that you managed to touch all kinds of current problems and issues, that reminds me of one saying that runs, among historians in Italy, that all history is contemporary history. So history is part of what we teach. And even if it is the history of fascism, and you made me think about that because that's one thing that I teach. And just a few weeks ago, we were talking about education and politics. I cannot say that I'm a classicist, but I studied in a classical high school that was funded during fascism by the philosopher Gentile. And so, yes, if I talk about democracy or non-democracy with my students, I go back to Athens too, and I go back to the inventors of the idea. And so there is a lot of interdisciplinary elements in what we do, and there are a lot of connections even among our disciplines.
And Evelyn, if I could just add one last thing. I think characteristics to both departments. What does it mean to study in these departments? It also means studying abroad. I mean, one of the first things you're going to do when you get to campus is figure out how to get off campus. And we're talking about way off campus. So whether you're going on a week-long spring break program to Rome or to Athens with religion and classics, or on one of the summer programs offered in the modern languages and cultures run by UR faculty, such as, I'll give you a quick list. We have summer programs in Rennes, France, Berlin, Germany, the island of Procida, Italy, Seoul, Korea. We run our program either in Quito, Ecuador, or Granada, Spain for Spanish, depending on the year, St. Petersburg, Russia. And we have the only faculty-led University of Rochester semester program that was founded by Donatella and has been running for some 20-something years in Arezzo, Italy. For all the summer programs, we have financial aid and fellowships because we know you don't have your normal financial aid package in the summertime. So we have funds to send you abroad in the summer. Studying in our departments means getting outside of yourself as an American in terms of perspective, but also physically outside of the United States to gain a perspective literally standing in another place in the world.
So we do both. We make them imagine, make students imagine the rest of the world, and then we also take them to see it directly. But one more thing that we should say is that we try to shape global citizens. I think that's one very important aspect of what I think is my task, my mission. Meaning, teaching students to abandon the centrality of their perspectives and trying to put themselves in the shoes of other people, of other countries, of other realities. And then I think it's beneficial. It's a humbling experience, and it's beneficial for one's growth. So to be global citizens, you need to have, again, this cultural literacy, and also a sense of your political being as a member of a community in which you want to be active, not passive, active. So that's why we end up talking about systems and political organizations and ways in which we can really make our voices heard, and develop that critical ability to evaluate the messages that we get, especially in a context like the one in which we live, that we are bombarded by media and information. And if we don't process that information critically, then it's hard to be active with an adequate awareness of what happens. So reading any literary text, for example, that's a way to train in this particular skill. I would say that is a skill. Very, very crucial for our reality in which we live. Another myth that I always try to dispel is that the university is this kind of special bubble and then there is the outside world. No, because it is right here then we deal with the outside world and provide the critical vision on that world in which we are always actors, never separated from it.
Well, and one thing, and this may be how this goes, that each one of us says something and it sort of rings a bell. So one of the ideas that both Donatella and John have kind of gotten to is this idea of imagination and being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And this, I think, is in part largely what the humanities does, is it sort of allows you a broader view of, trying to imagine what it's like in someone else's, in another country, even if you're there, trying to understand that person. And so in my department, one thing that I didn't mention, and I should, is that we also have a archaeologist on staff who has a dig in Italy. Generally every summer, she takes a number of students, generally between about 5 and 10. And we have another colleague of ours has a dig in Peru that she brings students to. And so again, reading texts, so if you sort of think of religion and classics, and then modern languages and cultures as primarily textual based, reading and thinking about what it is to be in somebody else's shoes, we also then, you are reading a material culture in these disciplines, and you're looking at objects that these people have and hold and used, and trying to reconstruct their culture. So within classics to reconstruct, but I think within the modern languages and cultures also to sort of reimagine how these things are being used by different cultures. And Donatella's husband is also very engaged in a program that we have, an interdisciplinary program, partly connected to religion and classics, and that is the Archaeology, Technology, and Historic Structures program. So again, all of these are really connected, and I think that's one of the real special things about the University of Rochester and our humanities, the study of humanities, is we are all connected. We know each other, we communicate with each other, we oftentimes work together, help each other, and so we do have this sort of very collegial atmosphere that I think the students benefit. I hope the students benefit from. I'm not sure if that's always the case, but I certainly, that's our goal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's something that John and I were talking about a moment ago, the fact that there is this very close connection, not only among us as faculty collaborating together, but also between us and our students. There is this intimate situation in which classes are small, groups are small, we know each other, we work with each other, we take them to places and share incredible experiences together that then remain with these students and remain with us for a long time. Now, you touched this question of the program, special major in archaeology, technology, and historical structures. Yes, that's a sort of a hub that involves your department, Italian, our department, the engineering department, and students who go to Arezzo, for example, in our semester program in Italian studies, also benefit from instruction that is associated with these other programs. So there is an interaction between the two programs, because in Italy, students take a big tour at the beginning of the program to visit antiquities, Roman and Greek antiquities, especially in southern Italy, from Rome down south. And they spend about 10 days, you know, visiting these locations and listening to lectures on site, which again border or group together archaeology, structural studies taught by an engineer, and history, and then a little bit of anthropology and something of the classical culture too. So all this, which is the excellent resource that we have on site in Italy, you know, it's really the material that we use for these programs that are based on the local resources. So we take students to Italy not to send them to the library specifically, but to go and see these things and think on site and touch, you know, these objects. And again, this is a result of a great collaborative initiative that's been going on now for years.
Wow, that I learned so much from all of your responses. And you kind of anticipated my next question of how do the courses within your department connect to STEM and other fields around the university? We've already talked a little bit about archaeological, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the major.
Yeah, it's a complicated name. Archaeology, technology, and historical structures.
There we go. I actually had a friend during undergrad who majored in that and absolutely loved it. But could you tell me a bit more, and our audience a little bit more, about the connections between the courses in your department and STEM?
So I can start with that, and I'll just piggyback on something that Nick said earlier. University of Rochester is a university of double majors. It's actually becoming a university with more and more triple majors. Triple majors were unheard of when I got here in 1993. And they were very reluctantly agreed to through a petition process, but very rarely so. We have ambitious students. And so what it means is when you come to Rochester, and let's say you're a STEM student, oftentimes it doesn't mean you're just going to be a STEM student. As you explore the other disciplines in social science and humanities, you will find that you have other passions. And I think this is true for religion and classics. It is for us. It is very easy to double major in our departments, and there are many reasons to do so. Obviously, there are the practical reasons, but I think also there's simply the reasons that you come to the university in the first place. You want to make sure that you get broadly and deeply educated, not just in a specific area as a means of obtaining a job and having a career, but these are the years of your personal and intellectual formation. You need to find out the authentic interests of the self. So we have people who come into religion and classics and modern languages drawn to what we're teaching in our courses and wanting to learn languages, and then realizing that since the only classes that are sequential really are the language classes, that it's easy to accommodate a second major in our class, in our department. If their science major has a very strict order of classes and prerequisites, they can still fit in a lot of our classes and actually become double majors. So we get a lot of double majors in our two departments. I will also point out that there are, even if you're an engineering major and only have, say, 5 courses beyond your program that you can take, the engineering school has done a lot to highlight broad opportunities. Usually there's summer broad opportunities that the students can take. We have in our department a couple of areas in particular where we've noticed a lot of engineering students moving through our programs. There is a a summer program in engineering in Germany, in Berlin, Germany, that we get a lot of students coming through the German program, taking German to go on that program. And believe it or not, there is actually an optics program through which you can go to Petersburg, Russia, and study at the National Research University of Information Technologies, Mechanics and Optics in St. Petersburg. And so we have students who are coming through Russian, learning some Russian so they can go and do this. So there are these very practical, specific areas that you can identify in terms of learn enough German or Russian and go on these programs. But there's also this idea that we just get a lot of science students who say, look, I want a really broad education, and what Religion and Classics and Modern Languages offers is something that's very engaging. Languages are fun. The idea of going abroad is very appealing. And so we get a lot of those majors as well. And I'll let my colleagues also comment on this.
Well, I would like to add that we attract students in all kinds of disciplines, especially in the sciences. For example, I routinely have TAs, undergraduate TAs in my classes. And one class that is especially popular across campus is the course on Dante, because I talk about the Middle Ages, but talking about that moment is a way of introducing history, introducing philosophy, introducing the thought of antiquity, introducing religious issues, literary issues, a lot of things. And well, this semester I have a physicist who's my TA, coupled with a student of philosophy who has expertise in theology as well. And they make an incredible couple. I mean, it's just incredible how their different skills interact and produce, interest in the students who discuss these issues with them from different perspectives. So that's another positive thing, that we have students from all kinds of backgrounds, and they find point of connections in our classes. Also, our courses are popular for Take 5 programs. I have many students who come from different disciplines and they want to do a Take 5 program in modern languages, and they choose Italian and Italian culture with components of religion and classics very often too, because they go very well together. So that's another aspect, the Take 5 year that is.
I'm going to unmute and answer the question that just came in from Ben. What do students do while studying abroad? Can they take STEM courses while studying abroad? And again, more and more frequently they can. I know that, again, engineering has a whole website of programs that allow students who go abroad for a semester or a summer to actually take engineering classes while abroad. And I know that Education Abroad has a similar list for the sciences writ large. Even if you can't, as a science or a STEM student, devote a whole semester abroad, you can get away for a summer, especially if we're helping you pay for it. And that's really why we have made sure that there is financial aid available for the summer courses and for the spring break courses in religion and classics, because those are times when that aren't really covered by your tuition package. So you can either go abroad in a way that does not conflict with what you have to do in your STEM program, or pick sites abroad that allow you to study a language, but take an engineering course in English, or if your language is high enough, in the language of the country. Although I think mainly they're going to places where they can take those classes in English.
And I'd say one last, if we're Evelyn, your original question about kind of how do our classes interact with STEM majors and things like that. I think one thing that I try and avoid saying there's a practical reason to study classics and religion, because I think there is something more important than practical, and that is to understand who you are and how you fit into the world. But we have a lot of students, and I think this has been borne out by the data, who will double major or even just major, but then will go on to medical school. And so there are a lot of people who will major in classics or religion who then become med students. And what they often find, and this is, I think, I don't know if it's special to our URMC, but admissions offices in medical schools will look for students who have studied the humanities in depth. I think in part because the study of medicine is so much about the study of the human and the individual. And, you know, certainly we want our doctors to know epidemiology and microbiology, particularly now, and physiology. But so much of it is, how do we deal with somebody who's at the end of life? And the study of religion and the study of classics oftentimes engages very directly with the issues of death and the afterlife. And so I think we will get a lot of students who are interested in medicine, and I will tell them, I say, all of those med school applicants all have majored in biology or biochemistry or these other sorts of things. I said, you're going to be in the smaller pile of students who has also a degree in classics, and those admissions people are going to look at that and say, well, that's interesting. They've thought about other things than simply the Krebs cycle or whatever it is else they teach it over in the biology department. So
Nick, may I say something about medieval medicine? Well, again, within my discussions about Dante and Dante's poetry, and we are talking about the late 13th century, beginning of the 14th century, I ran into this topic of medieval medicine, which is a part of philosophy, still philosophy. These physicians are philosophers of nature. And guess what? They discuss their ideas through poetry in many cases. And love, which is a big subject of poetry, becomes also a scientific subject, because these people discuss, human nature, human physicality, and human spirituality in the same context. So talking about medieval poetry takes you all in all these ramifications along these various routes, and you see how things are really connected.
I see another questions come through the chat here, through the question and answers from Marguerite. If you want to major in a STEM field in a language, how difficult is it to take classes that fulfill both requirements? The STEM classes will, when you look at the different major requirements, you'll see that clearly that there is really a strict order of classes you have to take, both the sort of allied classes like math or physics, and then say the biology classes you need for the biology major. And there'll be a very strict order in which you need to take these classes. In modern languages and cultures and in religion and classics, the only kind of strict adherence of order that you need to adhere to is the order of the classes that you're taking the language in. If you're starting Russian, for instance, which is what I teach, you're going to start at 101 and move forward, and you have to move 101, 102, 151, 152, and so on. And that's in order. But as you start to look at electives and core courses and the departmental requirements, those can be, because the departmental requirements, the two foundation courses are taught every semester, you can pick those up as they are available in your schedule. And as for electives and core courses, those also will be at different times from different professors. My feeling is, and the experience of my double majors has been, that that fulfilling our major is easier than their own because we just have more flexibility.
Excuse me, John, you said that you saw a question on the chat?
In the Q&A box, actually.
Oh, where is the Q&A? Oh, it's a different place.
Yeah, it's quirky in the Zoom webinar setup.
Okay, now I see it. I thought that you were calling it Q&A, but it was a chat instead. No, there's a different box. Okay, now I see it.
Yeah.
And I think to add to John's, that there is this flexibility, I would also encourage all of you, even if you were thinking, I want to study biology or mechanical engineering or anything, that it's never too late to start a language. Right, that even a semester, 2 semesters, 3 semesters, 4 semesters in your the last 2 years of your career, that will offer you all of the many of the benefits. Maybe not fluency necessarily to be able to study in the language, to go to Germany and study optics, for example, in German. But certainly, you know, that those 4 semesters will give you a window, as Donatella had mentioned, into what it is to be German and how Germans think about the world and see the world and express themselves, or if you do that in Latin or in Greek. Certainly, so I can speak from the classical languages, so Latin and ancient Greek, that by our goal is, since we don't need to teach conversational Latin or Greek, certainly there are some of my colleagues who do use conversational languages, conversation to enhance the learning. But our goal is to learn to read classical literature. So for example, in with our Greek cycle, a student could be reading Homer by their 4th semester. So if you were to start the language late and you said, but really what I want to do is I want to read Euripides in Greek, that is a true possibility. If you want to read Virgil in Latin, or Julius Caesar in Latin, by 4th semester, you will be doing that. In fact, you'll be reading excerpts well before that in Latin and Greek. So just the benefits, I mean, it's sort of like exercise, that just because you're not going to run a marathon doesn't mean you shouldn't run every once, get a little exercise every once in a while. So even a semester, 2 semesters, 3 semesters will do your brain and your soul immense good. So I'd encourage you, regardless of what you're going to major in, and I certainly hope that you'd look at the humanities, look at those courses and say, well, these are going to be interesting for their own purposes. You will get something. I know you will get something out of them.
Now, you touched this question of reading a text in its original language. And that is an amazing possibility, because, when we show students translations, I teach Dante in translation, for example, with the Italian text facing pages, and I show them 10 different translations or 20 different translations. Then, they say, oh my goodness. And then they realize that there is an interpretive issue at stake, that a translation is an interpretation. What is an interpretation? It's trying to figure out meaning. And so these ways of opening up to the translation versus the original, it's another greatly useful intellectual experience in itself.
So Evelyn, I'd also like to add something. I think it's actually from your list, that I think is apropos of our conversation now. As our students who are watching the webinar are contemplating where they might go, I would like to address the question why they might choose University of Rochester as opposed to other universities. And one of the first things that I want to say is that coming to the University of Rochester, because we have a small undergraduate student body, 5,000, a little more than 5,000 students, but we're an R1 that is a top tier research university. It's like having the best of both worlds. You come to University of Rochester, you have a small college environment, like a liberal arts college environment, where you have a lot of interaction with your professors, and in the humanities in particular, small student faculty ratios. But you also have a major research university where all of your professors are actively researching and going to conferences. Add to that the fact that across the street, across Elmwood, you have a major research hospital at University of Rochester Medical Center. And just a 10-minute shuttle ride away, you have one of the top ranked conservatories in the country. There are many advantages to coming here over going to other places. I just want to underscore that. I mean, I'm still in contact with students I've taught 20 years ago. You establish relationships with your professors that are long lasting and significant. And you come by, as happened to me just a couple summers ago, our offices in the summer with your kids and your new family, and we're sort of part of your continuous movement in the world. That's something that doesn't happen everywhere.
Maybe
Sorry, Donatella, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Nick.
So adding to John, you make a really nice point about that we are in the Goldilocks zone of being small enough to be personal and big enough to have the sort of resources of a Research 1 institution and the faculty of an R1 institution. And I think one thing that, so I went to a major state university, major research state university, where I knew my professors because I was in classics, so that was a small world. But certainly my fellow classmates who were in STEM weren't able to get involved in research unless they were really, sort of put themselves out there. And then I have friends who went to small liberal arts colleges of 1,500, 2,000 people, where undergraduate research was a big push. And of course, but they didn't necessarily have all of the resources. I think one of the really special things at the University of Rochester, being in this Goldilocks zone, is the fact that we do encourage undergraduate research, and we have a lot of outlets for students to do undergraduate research, whether it be in the humanities. I've had students working with me, and certainly in the STEM fields, working with faculty there, where they can, by the end of their careers, they're undertaking real honest to God research, thinking about major issues either in STEM or in the humanities. And then they have outlets for them to publish that, whether that be locally. So we have a research fair every year in the spring where students can sort of advertise what they've done. But we also then have, we've sent students to conferences. There's the National Conference of Undergraduate Research every year that generally attracts a lot of smaller liberal arts college students. But we send, I think we're probably sending 20 plus students every year to essentially publish their research abroad, letting other faculty, letting other professors, letting other students know what it is that they're doing. And so I think this is really one of those things that makes the University of Rochester special, because we do have both the resources and the size to encourage both of those.
And I will simply add on the question of undergraduate research that in MLC, in the Department of Modern Languages and Cultures, every spring we run our own undergraduate research conference based off of student research in our department. So we too encourage students to and work with students on research projects that become capstone writing in their major and future writing samples for graduate school applications and so on and so forth, and maybe even, who knows, the beginnings of a longer research project that they might pursue in graduate school.
Awesome. Thanks for reading my mind, John, with the questions. I guess we can talk more about post-grad opportunities for students who study both modern languages and cultures and classics. So what would you say students who study these subjects have the abilities to do in terms of career after they graduate?
Let me start with what Nick said about being a classics major and going to medical school. You can do that. You can also be a Russian major, a single solitary Russian major, and go to Harvard Law School, which is what one of my grads did. You don't have to have the traditional pre-med or pre-law major to do these things. Now, admittedly, when I asked that student, was Russian the deciding factor for you, do you think, to get into Harvard Law School? And she said, well, it certainly set me apart, but I think those 3 courses in logic also helped for the LSAT, and that's true too. Because so many of our majors are double majors, their careers are everywhere. But what a double major in our 2 departments does is it sets you apart. It's very important when you're applying to competitive graduate schools and medical schools and law schools that you have the prerequisite knowledge and coursework to your name. But if you want to stand out, if you want to look different, if you want to look like someone who has pushed themselves and sort of broadened their intellectual horizons, having a double major in something like, in the classics, for instance, or in Russian, always something that catches people's attention these days, is a way of saying, I challenge myself. These are not easy languages. Learning any language is not easy. Getting, a sustained proficiency in a language is not an easy thing, but I think these schools and these graduate programs and these employers are looking for globally minded employees and global citizens, something that Donatella was talking about earlier. So while our students do get jobs in the field, like for instance, a Russian major who studied with us and graduated in 2003, went on to work for 17 years at the Council of International Education Exchange, lived in St. Petersburg for 7 years as an on-site director, became their I got to read it, his job title is Director of Program Development and traveling worldwide for CIE for that. You can do that. Another one of our Russian studies majors went on to found a vodka company in Russia, which sounds very much like a cliche, but it's a very high-end vodka, Zyr, Z-Y-R, that you can find in fine liquor stores everywhere. Not that I'm telling you to go there. I'm just saying that was a particular career path that Russian opened up for him.
Sometimes these cultures force you into paths that I remember when I was in Poland with those vodkas. Something that you have to confront with. Well, the careers, I mean, something that speaks for itself is what some of our alumni do. We have one graduate in Italian studies who teaches for us, Andrew Korn, in Italian. He's a lecturer in Italian. And so he's right in our department, and that's one career. I have many former students who are in academia, art historians, several art historians. I'm just going, through the ones that come to my mind immediately, but there are many. A journalist in Chicago, a freelance journalist in Chicago. Another one who is coming next week to speak to my class about sport and politics in the Middle East. Just published a book on this topic, and he's a double major in history and in Italian, and teaches in a business school. I have two alumni who are teachers in high schools. They organized international programs and exchange programs with Italy. One of them actually who lives in Boston has organized an exchange program with high school students in Arezzo, which is the place where we have our own program. So much she was attached to it. She participated in the program for 3 years in a row. And so that became, a life-changing experience for her. I have two Episcopalian priests. One is about to be ordained, and the other one is already ordained. And the one who is about to be ordained got a PhD in English at Princeton. Another one is about to enter the law school to become a public advocacy lawyer. And they all feel that their experience within Italian studies just shaped their careers, gave them the hints, for what they later on pursued. And we collaborate. We still collaborate with one of these students they're both in New York, these two Episcopalian priests. I just did a recording for the Dante Society of America, which promoted this project of various people conversing on one of Dante's cantos, to celebrate the seventh centennial of Dante's death. And so we did a recording on a canto together with one of these students, a conversation, which was a way to revisit our past, as in the classroom, but also to see the new perspectives that we have now on our reality and to what extent that experience applies to what we have around. We called our recording, actually, he called it a call to action. It was a reading of a canto of Dante's Paradiso.
And I think I should probably add, so both Donatella and John have hit all of the major hit law school and medical school and the professional world, certainly business. There are plenty of people that go on to careers in business who have majored in various humanities. But also, I think what is special about the University of Rochester, and certainly in our Department of Religion and Classics, we are a small department compared to a lot of other universities. but we have sent some of our students to some of the finest graduate schools. We currently have a student at the University of Texas studying for his PhD in classics. UT is one of the really good graduate programs. I have another one who started this year, even despite COVID. He started his PhD program at Ohio State, which is another excellent program. Our religion program has sent people to Harvard to study religion there. And I think one of the things that kind of sets us apart in that way is because we get to know our students so well, I think we are able to write really personal letters of recommendation, and we can really recommend these students to these graduate programs more than at a huge program might be able to do, where a student is sort of shuffled through a variety of faculty members. This not necessarily that graduate school is what you should necessarily have to aspire to. I think there are plenty of other career options, but it is certainly a good one. I mean, I had a fine time in graduate school, and I think I've done pretty well after that. And I think one thing that both MLC, so I think John and Donatella's students, and I hope my students, they come away with a real passion for the field, for these disciplines, and after 4 years just want to keep going. They want to do more, and that's, I think, the purest reason to do graduate study. And so there are just a variety of things you can do after you get done here, and I think we set students in a good place to succeed in whatever they decide to pursue.
By the way, I didn't mention that our lecturer in Italian, he's a PhD from University of Pennsylvania. So after graduating from MLC, he got a PhD in Italian in Pennsylvania and then came back. So that's another, one of the graduate careers.
Awesome. I think we're running a little bit low on time. I think this is an excellent place to end with all the post-grad opportunities. We covered all the points that I was hoping to go over that I think are incredibly important for our prospective students to know. So thank you to our panelists for joining us here today, taking time out of their hectic days and teaching in the pandemic to speak with you all. I will note that if you do have any questions, you can email me. I'll put my email address in the chat. So if you want to connect with anyone here, I can be that bridge. For those of you who might be watching this later, my email is on the University of Rochester admissions website. There will be a picture of my face, my name, and my email address, so you can reach out to me that way as well. But thanks again, everyone, for joining us this afternoon, and hopefully we'll see your application soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.